Most of the time, a strange noise in your house is nothing. The pipes tick when the heat kicks on. Old wood swells and shifts when the temperature drops, and you learn to sleep right through it. But every so often, someone hears a sound they can't place, and instead of fading into the background, it gets worse, and it gets closer. By the time they figure out what it is, they wish they'd never gone looking. These are 3 stories from people who heard something beneath them and went down to check anyway. Story 1. I bought my first house at 31, an older place outside town, single story, with one of those low crawl spaces underneath instead of a basement. The knocking started about a month after I moved in. 3 soft taps, somewhere under the floor, always late at night. The first time, I figured it was the water heater, or the wood settling the way old houses do, and I went back to sleep. But it kept happening, and it wasn't random the way settling is. Always around 2 in the morning, always 3 taps, always from the same corner under my bedroom. I kept telling myself it was the pipes contracting in the cold. That was the answer that let me sleep. Then one night, I'm lying there in the dark, wide awake, waiting for it. 2 o'clock comes, 3 taps. And then, after a pause, 3 more, slower this time, like whatever it was had heard me holding my breath and was answering. The next morning, I told myself I was being ridiculous, but I couldn't shake it. So I grabbed a flashlight and pulled open the access hatch on the side of the house. The smell hit me first. Not damp exactly, more like a person had been down there. Cigarettes. I crawled in. And in the dirt, in that back corner, there was a flattened patch where the ground was packed down smooth. Next to it, an empty water bottle, some food wrappers, and a folded blanket that was not mine. Someone had been living under my house. I backed out so fast I cracked my head on a beam, called the police, and waited in my car across the street. When they searched it, they found a second way in at the back of the property, a board pried loose and hidden behind bushes. Whoever it was had been coming and going for weeks. They never caught him, but a neighbor told me later that the previous owner had a grown son who'd been in and out of trouble and nowhere else to go. I sold the place that year. I couldn't sleep over that corner anymore. Story 2. My apartment was on the ground floor of a building from the 1920s. The rent was cheap, it had great light, and a landlord who hadn't touched the place in decades. I live alone. The sounds started in the winter. At night, once the building went quiet, I'd hear movement under the floor. It wasn't pipes. It was footsteps, slow and dragging, moving from one end of the apartment to the other and back, like someone pacing down there. I told the building manager, and he barely looked up. "Old buildings settle," he said. "There's nothing under there but a crawl space." So I tried to take his word for it. But it didn't stop. Some nights I'd lie on the floor with my ear to the boards, and I swear I could hear breathing. I started sleeping with the lights on, half wondering if something was wrong with me. One night, the pacing got so loud that something in me just snapped, and I decided I was done waiting for the manager to care. There was a utility closet in my hallway I'd never opened because it was painted shut. I worked it open with a kitchen knife, and inside, behind the water meter, was a small wooden hatch cut into the floorboards. It led straight down into the dark. I didn't go in. I'm not that brave. I called the police instead, and they actually showed up. Under the building was an old service tunnel, the kind they used for coal deliveries when the place was built. It ran the length of the block, connecting 3 basements. And down there, right under my apartment, somebody had made himself a little camp. A mattress, a camping lantern, cans of food, and photos taped to the brick. He'd been living down there for months, getting in through an unlocked basement door 2 buildings over, and he'd picked the spot under my place for a reason. The officer told me he could hear me through the floor, and he liked knowing someone was home. I moved out that week. The landlord never even apologized. Story 3. When my husband and I bought our house, we had 2 young kids and a budget that only stretched to something old. A 100-year-old place with a stone foundation and a basement that smelled like cold earth no matter what we did to it. The first time we heard it, we were all upstairs watching a movie, and my son asked who was talking down in the basement. None of us had heard a thing. But after that, we all started catching it. A low sound, somewhere under the basement floor, that rose and fell in a slow rhythm. If you didn't think about it, it sounded like the furnace. If you did, it sounded like a voice. For a while, we made jokes about it. Old house, old pipes. Every place has its quirks. But it kept coming back, always at night. Always from that same spot near the back wall. My daughter stopped wanting to go down there to do laundry. Then one night, standing on those cold stones by myself, I heard it clearly. And it wasn't the furnace. It was low and steady, and it was coming from right under my feet. The next weekend, we pulled up the old boards in that back corner. Underneath was a wooden trapdoor we'd never known was there, swollen, almost shut with age. My husband got it open with a crowbar, and below it was a set of stone steps going down into a space the people who sold us the house never mentioned. An old root cellar, dug out by hand long before anyone we knew had lived there. It was mostly empty, just dirt and cold air and the smell of somewhere sealed up for a long time. But against the far wall, the foundation stones had been pulled out and stacked to one side, opening a gap into the crawl space under the rest of the house. And right at the bottom of the steps, pressed into the dust, there were footprints. Fresh ones. Coming up toward the trapdoor we'd assumed was painted shut for good. We never found out who had been down there, or how long. The police boarded up the gap, and we had the whole cellar filled with concrete the next week. The voice stopped after that. But here's the part I still think about. For 2 years, every single night, my kids slept in a house with a door in the floor we didn't know existed, and something on the other side of it that did. Have you ever heard a sound in your own home you couldn't explain away with pipes and old wood? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe while you're there.